So have we started yet?
No.
Okay.
I couldn't. It almost looked like a filter, like the disco light on you. I couldn't tell if it was a filter or if it was actually in the room, but it's in the room.
No, it's in the room. There's disco light behind.
Okay, cool.
I called my son before this. He's like, Dad, and just even before he came on, I just came up here and started jumping around. Ow! Ah! Okay, I'm not gonna do that. It hurts my balls.
Yeah, I saw it.
I slammed my ball. I don't have a routine or anything. So, yeah. So have we started the video? Are we rolling?
We've been rolling. Anyway, hey everybody. We, due to some conflicts, Eddie and I are doing another Zoom call. And Eddie, where are you, Eddie?
I'm in someone's cycle. You know what? Why not just talk about it? It's just kind of, if I were somewhere else, I'm in a place that I love how I can't get like a cohesive thought. So what happened on my end is the AIO water cooler on my desktop took a crap. It's kaput. Don't buy iBuy stops water coolers. The whole thing shut down. I'm not changing it with the amount I spent on that rig. So I wasn't going to do a podcast day. But then I saw this advert on Facebook and I decided to check it out. And I've got this phone. So to answer your question, Mr. Michael, this is actually a place where you take selfies. And it's more than that. It's more than that when you take this little Bluetooth speaker around and just try to show you. I don't know if I can flip this around, but you just go and they have like a little ring light, which is what I'm using. And this little facade note piece where you can enjoy yourself. And it is not just one aspect. I mean, there's the video right there. We're gonna have a video here this weekend. Is that correct? They're in a meeting. Can you hear me or not?
Yeah, it's better when you're closer to it. But...
Okay, when I have my Bluetooth brick, nothing but the finest here. Okay, so here's another. So it's basically a lot of studios, and I'm just gonna talk with it roaming in back of you. And this is what everything you can see, and this is the lobby. Now, if I come back to it, there's a full service. Well, I don't know. I think it's beer. I only see beer back there, so I'm bringing beer around. But it's a full service station, and I can't help but think that if this would have been an arcade. But it's dead. Mm-hmm. You hang out. Was I cutting out?
A little bit.
Okay. You can go back to there. But yeah, so this is where I am. It's basically a cafe or a beer and wine bar where you can sell. This place hasn't really had a grand opening yet. I just came in here yesterday. So it's not true though. Anyhow. And I obviously do our podcast from here. And after I did the conference, you guys, I discovered this room and I fell in love with it for obvious reasons.
Obvious reasons.
So yeah. So that's a little wait. Did you even see that?
A little. Can you hold the Bluetooth brick a little closer to your mouth?
Okay, son of a gun.
Sorry,
if I just get like two, we spend all this nothing but money on advertising, and then we have this brick that I got off of Wish. Okay, how do I put this? Okay, I'm gonna put it under my armpit while I tighten it.
All right.
Man, CNN has got nothing on us. Okay, okay, so how do I sound, audience?
Right now, you sound good.
Right now, I sound good. I'm gonna make sure I keep sounding good. Okay.
What the fuck is?
I just did something on my damn phone. I'm like 70. Give me a break. Okay. And I don't know if this brick is even charged. So yes,
Why don't you just go off the audio on the phone?
the audio on the, just take the audio on the phone.
I mean, it might work better if it's.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this off. Nothing but the audience. Oh, okay. So now I'm completely on phone.
Yeah, and you sound great.
I sound great.
Yeah, I think
You
with the
sound
Bluetooth.
hollow. You sound like you're on a damn phone. Let me see if I can.
Well, yeah,
get
because
this
it's.
to like do speaker. No, I can't. Okay, but it's for our guests. They're the most important. So I can hear you enough.
Oh, you mean like you'd have to put it up to your ear?
Well, it's not that bad. It's one of these fancy phones, so I can hear you enough. At any rate.
All right.
Cool.
Cool. Technical issues. Yeah.
Technical issues. It's what we're all about here. If you wanted Broadway, you would go see Wicked. You know, it's like, and it's there, or you could sit on your ass with your phone in your face and watch us.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love our audience.
I'm speaking of technical issues. I'm kind of irritated. I just got because, as you might know, if you remember, my other webcam had like that smudge on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a different webcam, and I'm not sure if you could tell now, but like the picture is shitty. Like you can see like the lines, like the tracking lines in a way. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know. You want me to go to another? Well, if I'm in another room, this is private. Can I turn this off? Can I turn this off? It's got to have a switch here somewhere. I believe.
Are you looking for like the disco light?
I'm looking to turn the disco lights off because it's. Is it bothering you? Is it bothering our audience?
No, I don't think anyone gives a shit.
Okay.
It only threw me off earlier because I thought it was like a filter.
Oh no, it's no filter. Those are actual disco
yeah,
lights,
exactly.
my friend.
Yeah, and the last time me and you had Zoom called, I got irritated. Remember one time I was like, "Can you hear me clearly?" Yeah, and then when we published it, like my actual mic on my headphones was not working.
Mm-hmm.
It was the mic from the webcam, which wasn't horrible, but it had like that kind of echoey, unfiltered feeling. And I was like, "God damn it!"
Gosh darn it! I'm gonna do one last thing. All right, what's the last
Go
thing?
for it.
Yeah, we haven't had enough technical. All right, so there went the disco lights. Is that better? Less
Yeah,
distracting.
it's fine. That's fine
Yes,
either
it's
way.
fine. Okay, so we have a podcast. We better well discuss something. And I rather came up with the idea of discussing facades and kind of decentralized lands and what have you. Because like I said, back in the 80s, this would have been an arcade. And you playing video games, every single video game that would have been in that arcade that would have been in the building can be on our phones now.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting that we seek out places that we're producing places where it's an Insta opportunity, you know. But then again, it beats going to Tulum or it beats going to Manhattan, you know, for that perfect. You could just come to San Diego or and be in a stripper club, you know.
I can imagine now, once that place takes off, people going there to pretend like they're somewhere else. Like the bedroom, I could see some poor kid like in that pink bedroom you were in, taking a selfie there, be like, just smashed. She's in the bathroom.
Absolutely, and it's a great place to do characters for me.
Okay, well, yeah, I can see that.
I went into every room and I did characters.
Just by yourself?
No, with the oodles of strippers and actors I brought with me. They're off camera.
Hey, you never know. I never know what to believe.
Yeah, they're outside. They didn't want to talk to you.
I get that a lot.
Yeah. Me and my alcoholic kombucha. So anyways, did we talk about that? Did we talk about something else?
Whatever you want to talk about, Eddie.
Okay.
The facades?
Well, what's your opinion on that? I mean, we have this, it's all about show, but then again, hasn't it always been about show?
Yeah, that's
to some extent. Hasn't it always been about flash?
Yeah, I think any sort of, when I say entertainment, I mean hospitality too. Like you kind of want that flash, and especially visually, if that's what you're going for. Yeah, I think any type of entertainment, you need that.
I mean, that's what Vegas is all about. And I
Oh, yeah.
realize that Vegas is the reason why I like it is because it's so damn distracting.
Yeah.
And when you can see somebody jumping on a stripper pole that it's a lot easier to do that than have to sit through a commercial unless you have TiVo and stuff like that. It's instant entertainment in the palm of your hand.
It's true. When I lived in Vegas, I think you would know this too. Sometimes me and my roommate would just go to the strip to just hang out and see what we see.
Yeah.
See what kind of nonsense. Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of people just looking around for the most part, and every once in a while you get a weirdo.
Yeah, I would say a little more than every once in a while. But yeah, it's always, especially in Vegas, because I mean, you get all the different types. You get the groups of girls who are like, Vegas isn't ready for me. Like, they're not ready for us. They're not going to handle us. Which is fucking dumb anyway. Dudes who just get too drunk. The homeless people, because Vegas has the top quality homeless people. They're the most entertaining homeless people in the world.
Okay, that's throwing down. What do you mean when you say the most entertaining? Because I think New York, we need somebody from Manhattan who could give you a run for your money. But what did you see in Vegas?
There's a few different ones. I remember, so I forgot the exit. It might have been Flamingo, but at one point off the strip, when you get off the 15, the ramp kind of goes up to Flamingo. I remember there was one guy there once with a sign that said, like spare change or whatever. And I just kind of glanced at him, and the wind caught his sign and it went over the edge, and he went after it. And I have no idea what happened to him. But it looked like, I'm sure he just kind of jumped over, reached down and grabbed it. But from my angle, it literally looked like the sign went over and he just leaped after it. So it was very comedic. In reality, he just landed on the other side, grabbed it, came back. But the light turned green. So all I saw was him jump after it and disappear. And then I drove off. And I think, I'm not sure if I told the story. The first day I was in Vegas, it might have been, no, it wasn't the first day, the first week. I had just finished auditioning for the program I was trying to enter. And so I was outside the theater building. It's just for anyone, the UNLV is an open campus. Like, there's not like an entrance, like you can just walk in anywhere. That's important, because then I'm with these two people that I don't really know that well. I just met them after the audition. A guy named Tom and a girl named Jen. Both would later become good friends of mine. And this dude walks up to us wearing like a leather vest, but with no shirt, just the vest, some khaki shorts, and like sandals, and his hair is all fucking shaggy. And I feel like I might have told this story already on this, but who cares? And he just kind of starts ranting about, he just asks us, hey guys, just so you know. So this is probably a good 10-minute rant that I'm going to summarize. So he goes on to tell us a story about how he was kidnapped by the government, U.S. government.
I like it already.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. I want to write the script about this story. So he got kidnapped by the government, and they implanted a worm in his brain, like a microchip worm.
A worm, okay.
Yeah, like that contained the blueprints to the next Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
He didn't elaborate, just the next Noah's Ark. And so he got out, and he's been on the run ever since. And he advised us, if you ever find yourself in the situation, just keep off the grid, cash only jobs, keep moving, et cetera, et cetera. So this is like a good 10-minute long thing. And he goes on, he goes, and if you guys can, someone needs to contact China, someone needs to contact India, and they need to send their military in to get me out. Because like, that's how much I know, and that's how much I'm in danger, et cetera. So he goes on this 10-minute rant, and he just stops and stares off into nothing. Like, but think really, like everyone thinks like, oh, it's only 30 seconds. Think 30 seconds of silence. That's a long time.
Yeah.
So he just stares off for like a good 30 seconds, and we're just like, what, huh? And then he just kind of like, oh, anyway, do you guys have any change I can get? And it was, I would have given him change if I had it. I didn't have it. And it was just, I was like, that's so interesting. I was so like, I want to give him a round of applause. It was such an interesting story. And I've come across a lot of like, just in Vegas when I lived there, off the strip and especially on the strip. I don't mean to laugh at the homeless problem, but they are the most entertaining.
Oh yeah,
Maybe-
there's a certain freedom. Let's call it what it is. Freedom when you don't have to play by the rules. If traffic's going, traffic will stop for you as you're crossing 4 lanes of a busy street, and go, damn it, that homeless guy. There's a certain freedom to that. And they
You're
know
right.
that.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And then, I'm sorry. There's another side to it. Were you done?
No, all I was gonna say is there's one instance which I know I've told the story in Hollywood that I saw he was pissed off, but he was a very entertaining homeless person. But outside of that, Las Vegas, absolutely. That's all.
Los Angeles, I did meet. Well, I was helping somebody just with kind of construction. They were actually building a new church and what have you, and just kind of doing the interior for a day or two. And there was this guy who had I think they were women's sweatpants, old ones. I think they had the word pink on them too, and kind of like a ponytail like on the side of his head, going, "I know Britney Spears. I know Britney Spears," and that's fascinating.
He probably does too.
No doubt.
Or he met her, yeah.
No doubt. And then, I say this. I'm struggling here because I last Tuesday I attended it's not attending. I showed up and I volunteered for an organization that's called We See San Diego. I don't know. We talk about kind of the craziness, but let's be honest. It's an honest reaction to the outrageous things that we see. And I really like this organization because it's done 100% off of donations. They have Whole Foods, Albertsons donating their bread and what have you. Nice. And it was so incredible and palpable just to feel the goodness of people, and whoever showed up on Tuesday night, they got a chili dog, they got a cheeseburger, they got and it wasn't like a hot dog, it was like a sausage, like a Hillshire Farm sausage or something like that, along with potato salad. And somebody brought some cucumbers, they chopped them up and had them as a condiment as well. And the dessert plates were leftover frickin' cakes, whole donuts. It wasn't one plate that could feed a whole table. Everybody got their own damn plate.
Oh, nice.
They had bags of ciabatta from Whole Foods that they would just leave on the side if you were hungry. So I struggled with that because I still have a feeling that despite our homeless population, a lot of that bread's going to get disposed of.
Yeah, that's one thing. Remember I watched a documentary on it, or I read something, I forgot, some time ago, that like when you go to the store, I'm gonna I don't know the percentage, but throwing out a number, like 40% of the food, like the produce and bread that's out there, eventually just gets thrown away.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that's dog shit. That sucks. Like that shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen, and we're an extremely abundant country. I read a statistic. It was a factoid, not a statistic.
Sure.
And in just pre-internet days, believe that or not, where it said South Korea throws away more food than North Korea produces.
I'd believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an easy one to believe. But I was so moved by frustration. I was like, I could take some of that ciabatta bread and take it to Mexico because I'm only 30 minutes away from the border. How difficult is it to take bread? And I know it would not go to waste if I took it across the border. But then again, what's that hassle involved in bringing foodstuffs across the border?
Yeah. And that's
well, yeah, that's interesting quandrum.
No, you're right. And that's one thing I think it was a documentary I was watching about when they talked about that is a lot of the stores, and I actually think that's awesome that Whole Foods and Ralph's are donating that stuff, but they're talking about how like a lot of stores are almost decentralized because like the cost of having to like package up old food and then get it somewhere is like goes into their profit margins. They're just like, we'll throw it away. It doesn't matter. And it's kind of like, that sucks. But that's cool that Whole Foods did that down there. That's pretty.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. There were by the end of it, they were giving away whole pies. There was more food than there were people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating watching, these people by the freeway and what have you, asking for money. And, there's been more than, not everybody does this where they, take the money and, get into a Mercedes or something. And those people are going to be in hot places in hell. But that being said, it's like, where are these hungry people? This is one part of San Diego. I mean, we're not talking, Chula Vista. We're not talking El Centro, other outlying areas. But it's amazing that within this area, if for one night, I was serving people. They had it, where we had table assignments, and I would just have a hot plate of food and I would set it in front of somebody, and, they would go to town. Some of them would ask for seconds, and they opened their gate at 5, and at about 6 or 6:30, then they would start giving seconds, and then we would give dessert. People were literally walking out of there with to-go boxes, and that's not to mention desserts and sweets. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
It is very good to hear. They're. And, it goes without saying that these people you see that are outrageous, there are issues with mental illness. I heard a couple fighting as everyone was cleaning up. I was looking, we had to pour like chili juice out, and I was looking for a storm drain or something, couldn't find it. But there was this couple fighting. And she's just telling him, you got to clean up. It was a lot more, swearing in it and what have you. But you deal with issues like that when, you don't have it. Well, you can be rich and have issues like that. I'm ranting. I'm totally ranting.
No, you're fine.
It was just very interesting to see that kind of life put right in front of me because, I work from home and I'm behind a computer.
Yeah, exactly. But there is kind of, obviously neither one of us are experts on the subject, but I do feel like there is a mental health thing behind being homeless. Because granted, I've been very blessed to have a family that cares about me and enough friends that care about me that if something were to happen, if the bar were to burn down, the house gets blown up, and I'm stuck, I'm fucked. I know I have enough resources to where I can go crash on a couch, or I can, there's a guest room one of my buddies has. I can stay there and try to get back on my feet. So sometimes, and I'm not trying to be judgmental at all, but like when you do see someone who's like straight up homeless, in the back of my head, I can't help but think, like, do they have no one? Is there no resource for them? And that's where the mental health aspect is, how did they get in that position? And so it's just something like I said, I don't know dick about it. I'm just kind of speculating in my own head. But it's always been something that I've kind of thought about, is how did they get to that point? Kind of, this is a weird comparison, but like kind of when you see somebody who's like morbidly obese, who can't get out of their bed, you kind of think like, how did they let it get that far? At what point did they, you know what I mean? Like, did they never think like this is not healthy? And that's where I think when I see a homeless person, I kind of think like, I'm curious about the steps, if that makes sense. Kind of like a morbid curiosity of how they let it get that far to where that's the position they were in.
That's a legitimate curiosity. One thing that's also, I think, overlooked when discussing is that some people are just feral. You can give them all the training, all the help, but they just don't want to be a part of any organization. That could be mental illness. That could be just a simple desire for freedom. But that being said, I mean, you can camp a lot of places. There's tons of woods around here. The fact that you're camping on the corner of where the Starbucks is, just on the sidewalk, you want to be seen,
Yeah, I've kind of thought about that as well. Because even I think it was over in Duarte, there's kind of like, you can kind of see like a homeless camp that's off the freeway or off the one of the highways, but it's kind of secluded. You have to like really look for it to see it. So like to kind of add to your point, like that I kind of get. If I was homeless and I had to pitch a tent somewhere, I would do it out of sight. But you're right, especially like you go downtown LA, like in Skid Row and shit, and they're just out on the sidewalk everywhere. Granted, it's different 'cause you're in a big city, but still, like you said, there's ways to kind of be out of sight. But
You could be out
Oh.
of sight or you could be a part of it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
also dangerous. Where's the security? You know, and you get tired of the same thing day in and day out. So if drugs are cheap and available, you can certainly, you know, you can certainly go down that route, and then you have the issue with drug treatment going on. It's and what's the case? You know what I'm really curious about? I used to live in San Dimas and then commute all the way to Cyprus, and I would pass the Big A, you know, the bit, you know, where the Angels play and what have you.
Yeah.
And I remember it wasn't during that time, but I remember there was one tent. There didn't used to be any tents by there. There was one tent, and then like 2 months later, I drive by and the whole thing is frickin' packed. You know. Since then, this was a while back. They, you know, made an effort. They, you know, social workers went in there along with Orange County sheriffs, cleaned the place up. In the wash, they found a cache of stolen bicycles. Big surprise. And where were these people? There weren't any outhouses or anything. There weren't any, you know, facilities. So they would just go in the wash.
Yeah.
And that's an environmental hazard. That's all untreated sewage going out and washing into the Pacific Ocean. I mean, where were the protests? Where were the outrage? Where were the people with shovels who call themselves environmentalists, ready to, you know, right this wrong? There's also that component. These people urinating on the street and defecating in the sewers, it goes untreated. And you know, who's handling that? Now, you know, we sit here as fake philosophers just saying, okay, these are the problems, these are problems. Lyndon B. Johnson had a war on poverty. Where has that gone? Are we done with poverty? Are we good?
Clearly, yeah.
So how do you defeat poverty? I guess that's what
Yeah.
I'm getting at. This isn't a first world problem either.
No. And that's what you kind of touch on something too. Like even, and this is where I'm ignorant. So like you said, like social workers went in, the sheriffs went in. And even recently I overheard a discussion about, I think we were talking about Portland and how there was a certain homeless issue in Portland. And then they came in and, as you said, cleaned it up, in quotes. And in my head, I'm like, what does that mean when you say clean it up? Like are you throwing them on a bus and just taking them elsewhere? Are you taking them to a shelter? Are you taking them to a prison? Like, what does clean it up mean?
They just move from one place to another.
And that's what I mean. Yeah.
Dance. It's a little circus, as it is in Orange County in front of the courthouse. So they sterilize that place once a week, and there's a homeless encampment. This information may be dated because of COVID and what have you, but for a while, all the homeless people would pick up their tents, move out of the way, sweepers would come through. After the sweepers left, they set up their tents once again. It's just a little dance.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of, I guess it's kind of irritating to me. It's like people talk about cleaning it up instead of trying to address the issue. Does that make sense? Like they just want to clean it up, make it go away.
Yeah.
Without addressing what's happening, really. Yeah.
And this is something that goes on no matter what the government.
Yeah.
And you go to other countries, and this is another difficulty I have. You know, and I'll be honest, my thing right now, after being a part of the organization We See You San Diego, I'm going to keep going back to that. I support it. I love sincerity, and I love just that people are convicted enough to want to make a difference. Now, that being said, when I went to Thailand with my mom, you know, she never, ever, ever frickin' gave to homeless people here, ever. But she was whipping out, you know, cash over there, some Thai baht, because people over there, they are blind. This one guy had no arms and no legs and just was holding up a cup. My mother would give money to those people because it's obvious that they were dealt something happened in their life and there's no social support system. And it's very interesting here where I go and I support an organization that is funded, that not well funded and has donations from stores and are feeding these people just the amount of food there was, as you could tell by my reaction, nobody left hungry. If you left hungry, it was because you had the desire to leave hungry. But anybody who walked through those gates, if you weren't late, if you showed up there on time, or if you showed there just before everyone was cleaning up, you got fed and you got a lot of food. And if it wasn't hot food, believe me, you had bread to tide you over.
Yeah. You had
So
something.
what do we consider poverty? What do we consider poverty in this country?
Mm-hmm. Definitely that, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting.
How do you solve it? Okay. Here are the problems. It should go away. Not in my neighborhood. We need affordable housing, but I don't want a bunch of crackheads and a bunch of heroin users, or people who may have, lost a family member who was the breadwinner or something like that, or had to take care of a loved one who eventually passed away. How do you solve that problem?
Absolutely, and there's no easy answer, obviously. But that's what kind of just irritates me is people. It's a common thing that everyone does, that we bitch about the issue, we bitch about the problem, without trying to find the solution. I think that's an issue that I was to say, as Americans, but probably across the world, everyone's like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and then no one's like, okay, well, how do we fix it then?
How do you fix it?
Yeah, and I'm not saying I had the answers, but
wasn't Jesus helping out, the less fortunate as well? There was poverty back then. Poverty today. We can blame governments. We can blame our, that corporations and greed and what have you. But if you go to countries that, are socialist or communist, they also have poverty problems. Sure. It's interesting that if you live in a country where if you're not going to work, there's the threat of jail, there is still poverty.
Oh yeah.
So, again, this is a rant on both of our parts. There, nobody's going to go, wow, I got a solution I need to share for solving the homeless crisis, because there isn't one.
There isn't not an obvious one.
Housing.
Yeah, I think there is probably a solution. In my opinion, I think a solution would require personal sacrifice from the non-homeless, and I think the majority of people who are non-homeless, that's the way to phrase it, don't want to make that sacrifice. That's my opinion.
True. And then I just saw a news report today in the Inland Empire. Okay, so you work in Los Angeles, everything's gone up because COVID, if you own an apartment or something like that, you were letting it go for dirt cheap during the pandemic. Now that the pandemic's over, everybody wants to move back to LA. And if you can afford a house, you can afford anything. People are moving out to Redlands. People are moving out to Hemet. There was a 2-bedroom, according to ABC News report I saw, in Redlands, $2,600 for a 2-bedroom in Redlands. When a couple of years ago, that was freaking $800. So, okay, you have your job. You're working for $15 an hour. Everything's going to rent. And yet we have this issue with people who don't have a job. So, that's an argument for the Great Resignation. That, okay, I can work my ass off for what? For what? Just so I can pay rent? Yeah.
That's what I read. It's anecdotal. I don't know the legitimacy of it, but I saw like this thing on Facebook that somebody had reposted that apparently, a lot of companies are bitching like no one wants to work anymore, this and that. So apparently this person, and again, this is anecdotal, I don't know how true it is, but they applied to 2 jobs online every day for a month. And from what they said was, I think they said it was a total like 54 jobs, because like maybe not weekends, I don't know. But so out of like 54 jobs, she said that like only 16 got back to her. And she did make a point to point out that she went after certain kinds of jobs where the people are bitching about how no one wants to work. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So she was specifically targeting those jobs. Out of 54, I think she said like 16 people got back to her.
Mm.
And I forgot the numbers from there, but like she only went in for like maybe 10 interviews. And at the interview, even though the numbers I forgot, but if they advertised $20 an hour, when she went in for
Mhm.
the interview to discuss it, they said, we're going to start you at 15.
Yeah.
And she said, well, your sign said 20. And they're like, you could reach there. If you're here for 6 months, you will get to 20, but you start at 15 or whatever the number is. And there was
Mhm.
other little things where like she said that like the actual position being offered did not match the position listed. And so she said
Wow.
she said at the end of the day, out of like the 54 applications she put in, I think she said maybe only 2 of them were like acceptable, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
That makes a
So
lot of sense. There's a lot of
yeah.
misrepresentation by hiring people.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced that. Why aren't salaries posted? Because if you're a headhunter, you want to get that spread in between. So you're going to pay the person $50 an hour, but the business is going to pay you $75 an hour. So you get the $25 VIG, that spread in between. So that's why you don't post it.
Yeah. It's just interesting, like a lot of, because we've been fortunate to where we haven't had too much of an issue in most of the areas of the bar. A couple positions are hard to find, but for the most part, we're okay. But then, yeah, just to see like some real life examples of like people moaning and groaning about how no one wants to work. But then,
Mhm.
as you just said, like really, like be honest, like if I could get unemployment and make more money than I would working my ass off for 8 hours a day, why
Mhm.
wouldn't I go to unemployment? Like,
Absolutely.
and I mean, I'm not sitting here moaning and groaning about it, saying unemployment's evil. I'm just saying, like, just logically, no
Mhm.
one wants to go to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unless you have like a kick-ass job where you just really enjoy the fuck out of it. But most people don't want to go to work. You have to go to work.
Mhm.
And
You have
so
to
if
work to
you
survive.
exactly, so if you come to a point where I could make the same amount of money not working,
Mhm.
logically speaking, why would you go get a job where you're stressed out every day, working your ass off, putting your body through misery? And so I'm not saying, I'm not one of these guys like that's why unemployment's stupid. I'm not saying that, but like there's an argument to be made there, like should people pay better wages, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where even in my head I go back and forth. But there's clearly something going on there where it's like, is it unemployment or is it maybe the employers should think better? I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm ranting now,
Or
but
is it incumbent upon the business? Is that the business responsibility? You're there to produce a product. You are there to generate income. That's what you do. So if you're, if the perfect employee, you're going to pay them as little as you want and get the maximum results. I mean,
absolutely
that's the
that's
way.
absolute capitalist model. Yeah,
Mhm.
spend as little as you
What
can to make
was
the
the
most.
thing
Yeah.
I heard? Uh, yes, in communism, wait, no, in capitalism, man exploits man. But in communism, the opposite is true. That
All right.
you have to think on that one. You
All
have to
right. I
think.
got you.
Wow. But yeah, there's not really an easy. I mean, we talk about the Great Resignation, but okay, you take a 20% hit, you're on unemployment. There's got to be some sort of social safety net. That's why this is what I gather, that people aren't working. That's why there's this kind of frustration. Okay, so you throw your hat into there. You go for these jobs. What's that light at the end of the rainbow? You said 20, I just interviewed for 15. 20 in 6 months, okay. But then at the end
Yeah.
of the rainbow, is that $20 an hour? How much of that is going to cover that $2,600 rent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the way, and commuting. Let's say you have to work in LA, you still have to take the train to get to downtown if you live in Redlands. Is it worth it? Or do you just say, hands up, you know what? I'm homeless. Deal with it, world. I deal with it. It's not worth going into freaking LA or paying $2,600 in Redlands. Nope, not for me.
Yeah.
There's a couch somewhere or a tent I could pitch.
And I'm sure there's people who made that choice.
Mhm.
Um,
And this
I
will be
remember,
interesting because I'm not done with this. I want to talk to the people that run We See You San Diego, and
Mhm.
just because they're every Tuesday, they've been doing this for a while, and just get their perspective on poverty and where it's going. I don't know that it's going to be recorded. I'd like it to be recorded, but we'll see what happens. But I want to pose that issue. Somebody who stares at poverty, some of these, social workers who are on the front line, encountering addicts, encountering people who are feral, who just don't want to be a part of society, yet they still need to eat and they're not going to hunt. How do you solve that problem? How do you solve addiction? How do you solve somebody who just
Yeah.
got out of jail and can't get a job?
yeah, there. I think no, those are all good questions. Because
Mhm.
even and this is, I'm gonna sound like a fucking asshole right now. How do you, kind of like you said, with if someone's just feral, like
Mhm.
how do you solve that? That's a question that it makes you sound so cold. But if there is a person who is so, like you said, feral, you call it being feral, mentally ill, whatever, who they're literally not hireable, objectively,
Mhm.
cannot be hired in a job. There's no way they can make money. There's no way to support themselves. They can't even behave themselves if hypothetically they were sent to like a homeless shelter or some sort of home. They can't even behave themselves in that home because they're putting other people in harm's way, or they're violent, whatever. How
Mhm.
do you deal with that person? And it's such a cold thing. It sounds cold when you say it. It's like, what can you do but just let them be homeless if that person can't abide by the rules at a shelter or whatever? Like, it sounds cold, but that's, well, how else do you deal with that?
Absolutely. If you have
Yeah,
somebody who is determined to do heroin, that's their thing. You don't want that in the shelter.
yeah,
What are you going to do?
yeah. And you do, even granted, it was a homeless play. At the bar, I've come across people who just, they want to fight.
Mhm.
Like, I literally watched. I have it on a video. I might be able to get the camera footage. It was a couple years back, but this guy literally was just eyeing somebody across the bar who was playing
Oh, man.
pool. And I remember he was there, and he was like, "That guy over there, you know him?" And I did know him. He's a regular. I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Is he good? Is he a fighter?" I was like, "No, he's a cool guy. Like, he's a chill dude." And he's like, "So I kind of like, what if I went over there and like picked a fight with him?" And I was like, "Please don't do that." I thought he was just fucking around. Sure
Yeah.
enough, fast forward 20
Jesus.
minutes, I'm like washing a dishes, and a customer was like, "Hey man, there's an issue over there." And I turned, dude just got up, because I watched the camera later. Dude just literally got up, went over there, shoved the guy. The guy was like, "What the fuck?" And he started swinging on him. No instigation, no provocation,
Mhm.
nothing. Just got up and went over there and fought him. And so now you think about a homeless guy who has that mindset. You can't keep him in a home. You can't keep him in a shelter if he's just gonna
Yeah.
fucking swing on people. Like, how do you help that person? Which now
Mhm.
we're going down a whole nother path, but yeah,
Well, it's one that's existed. It's one that's existed, and we're not going to solve it in a podcast. Imagine being a politician. We voted for you. We put you into office. Fix this. Well, I'm going to do this social program and that. We're going to conduct a study. And then there's going to be a committee. We're going to take funding away from the police and give it to social programs. So that way there's more, shootings and what have you. And then what do you do? What do you do? And there's a segment,
Mhm.
but then, okay, so coming from a spiritual standpoint, is it one's responsibility to, I don't want to say judge, but caring is more important. You can't correct, but you can
Mhm.
care.
Yeah,
To me, that makes sense, because you're not going to correct that person if they do not want to be a part of society. If it's just not in them, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. You can throw out
yeah,
every opportunity. And it's interesting because I'm going to tell a secret that's not a secret. Learning IT, learning how to program, having jobs come at me, you can go online, you can learn that. I know
Mhm.
people with high school diplomas who own 3 houses just because they know SQL. You can learn that on freaking line. You can
Mhm.
post that. What sounds better? Here's my resume, or look at that house I built over there. I want to be your architect. You can do that online. So if anybody's watching this and who needs a job, w3schools.com. I'm going to make sure you post that, Glennie, if I don't post it as well.
Sure.
But it's the biggest secret that's not a secret. You can learn programming. It's insane. It's sick. And these are very, very good jobs out there.
Yeah.
You know?
But
So
even on top of that, like, it's funny you mentioned that. Different situation, but we were doing some work at the bar. We were fixing the backyard up anyway. And my brother-in-law, he rented a Bobcat, kind of one of those tractors. And the first day we rented it, he had a buddy who kind of came in and did it. But other days where we didn't have his buddy to help us, he jumped on it, I jumped on it, and we just learned it. And actually, I got pretty fucking good at driving this Bobcat and moving dirt. I got pretty fucking good at it, where I wasn't even thinking anymore, just on my thing. And my brother-in-law was like, "You're pretty good at that." I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Bobcat drivers who are licensed make like $40 to $50 an hour." And I was like, "Doing this?
yeah.
That I just picked up in a couple hours?" And he's like, "Yeah, they make. It might not be 40, 50. It was a nice amount for the amount of skill required." And I was like, "No fucking way." And he's like, "No, I know people who do this. They make this amount of money doing what you just picked up." And I was like, "Well, I quit." No.
Well, there's opportunities. It's not lack of opportunity. It's lack of, kind of desire and finding that and stick with it. And then there's that age-old question. Okay, there's the pandemic. We're going to hand out stimulus. Is that making people lazy? If you're going to be, if you got kids to feed and what have you, if you can't work because you got to take care of a sick loved one, where does that go? But if I'm giving you stimulus and you're going to get rich off of Solana, you're going to get rich off Cardano, Ethereum, Bitcoin, which a lot of people have done. And, there's kind of been that a study done that a lot of people who took that stimulus money and invested it. Well, I know for myself, if you did that, homeless or not, you're sitting pretty right now. So you can either go back to work or you can be living off of, your investments that the government gave you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always ways to do it, to come back. But like you said, if even with all those options, if someone just doesn't want to partake,
they won't.
What
And
can you do? Yeah.
That's in this country. Do you have this country? If you lived in Jamaica, if you lived in Botswana, if you lived in Tanzania, would you have the opportunities that you had here? That if you want to step it up, you can step it up like now. You can do that right now. There's a library you can go to, just walk into, sit behind the computer and start studying code. There's a used computer you can get and start studying code. I mean, start studying whatever you want to study.
Yeah.
So we got to remember that those are opportunities that are only I wouldn't say only, that are predominantly in this country. And I think a lot of that's passed over. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
No, it's obviously, even aside from what we've talked about, which is already complicated. And there's already everything we've brought up has levels of complexity to it that we didn't even dive into. Because at the same time, as much as I say, if someone's, like you said, feral is a perfect word, and they're just not going to blend with society. At the same time, I can't help but like the empathetic side of me going, well, okay, then how do we take care of the person? If they're not going to partake, how can we at least take care of them? Because that is a life. And then at some point,
you can't solve, but you can be concerned.
Like I said, my personal opinion is there are potential solutions out there, but it would require sacrifice from everyone who it doesn't affect. You know what I mean? Like me and you, hypothetically, let's just say hypothetically, I'm just using numbers. Me and you both make $100,000 a year. What we need to survive in our current situation, again, just random numbers, we only need $50,000 to survive. As far as rent, mortgage, food, whatever, $50,000 to survive. But we make $1,000 a year. Would you and you be willing to sacrifice that $50,000 to give to homeless people and to feed them and to take care of them and to try to get them job opportunities, etc.? Would we be willing to do that?
Is it going to solve the problem?
Maybe not in general, but maybe for these people, these 20 people,
out of 120 people, out of 500, out of 200, 20 people.
that's what I mean, though. Just between you and I, would we be willing to sacrifice half of our earnings to try to lift up 20 to 30 people, or not? And that's what I'm saying. At a bigger scale, I think there's probably potential solutions, but I don't think there's people who are willing to sacrifice their comfort. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but you understand what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, and that dollar amount that we're sacrificing, if we put it to education, if we put a meal in front of them and a teacher in front of them, are they going to show up every day and do what it takes?
Well, of course, and
Step up to the
it's
plate.
very complex. Yeah, it goes more than that.
It is. It takes motivation, and that's why, from my perspective, I watched I keep reading in the news about the Darien Gap. It's between Belize and Colombia, I believe it is. It's very treacherous. Bandits. Topographically, if you're walking from South America to the United States, you're going to have to cross the Darien Gap. And just seeing, the BBC sending a reporter along with a bunch of migrants who are just taking the land route, and it was very difficult. My perspective is, if you can do the Darien Gap and then walk all the way up from Colombia, from Venezuela, all the way to the United States, I want you in this country. You have shown and demonstrated motivation that is beyond what I see on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's a crucible. I never did the crucible, but my son did it, and it's not fun. It brings out character. And if that's the type of character you have, that's what this country is made of. So believe me. Yeah. And we're making it hard for those people to come in because we're afraid of terrorists. We're afraid of drug dealers. We're afraid of this and that. But, and there's not an easy question. There's not because how do you do that? How do you do that?
No, that's actually, I've never heard it put that way before. That's an interesting take, where if someone's that determined to come here, shouldn't we let them come here?
Absolutely, let them in.
That's an interesting take.
I'm sorry, those people are not going to sit on their ass. Theoretically, those are people are not, or they're going to take stimulus and they're going to freaking build the next Microsoft. You're right.
You're not going to travel through hell on earth to sit on your ass in the United States. That's not going to happen.
Yeah,
if you're doing all of that to get here, it's just weird. Like, I've never heard that take on that. It's always like they're terrorists. They're coming here from that far away to come and ruin our country. But I've just never heard it out loud. And now it sounds so obvious. If someone's willing to work that hard to get here, shouldn't we let them come in? Like, yeah,
you're damn straight. Roll out the red carpet. And that's where that sacrifice for that, me sacrificing my money, contributing taxpayer money, absolutely, 110%. You want to come here that bad, you deserve to be here. You're not entitled. You weren't born here generation after generation. You put one foot in front of the other, and you went
literally walked the continent.
You walked here and you sat through our own government's, the United States immigration process, which is difficult, and survive the process. Those people, in my opinion, deserve to be here more so than other people. I'll just say it. The people who were freaking born here, and I get that sense from the military. I mean, you get that. These are a demographic of people who know what it's like to work, who know what it's like to sacrifice, and just juxtaposing it against that, you don't need to wear a uniform to have that level of dedication. And if you do, you should be at the front of the line. There should be like a scanner or something. Those people are going to make this country great. Those people are who made this country great in the first place. Pioneers, gangsters. Gangsters made it. Business people, they made this country.
Yeah, there's no argument for me. That's a fair take. Because it's one of this kind of sounds silly, but it's almost different. But if like you watch a thief like work his ass off to know all the tricks, and he's patient, it takes hours at a time, and he ends up stealing $1 million from the bank, you're kind of like, well, he kind of deserved it.
Yeah,
that guy took the time to learn his craft, was patient, worked, and did it. Granted, I'm not calling these people criminals or thieves, but like, it's just one of those things. Like, if they're putting that much work into it, I'm not mad when they win or they accomplish the goal. I don't know. It's a weird comparison, but like, that's just kind of I was like, no, if somebody does travel that far, works that hard to get here, yeah, like that's who you want on your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, we've been ranting for a while now.
We've covered
So-
a lot of ground. I thought it was going to be
We did.
facades and yeah. this little,
Very rough
thing that we
start,
got here.
technically. Yeah, very rough start, technically, but
Yeah,
we
rough
made it.
start technically, but we got through it.
Indeed. So I'm going to let you go. And I'm going to stop
Okay.
this recording. Thank you for everyone who
Absolutely.
stuck around and listened. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for us to listen to us rant. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and then we'll post the link to where Eddie's at right now, the Selfie bar.
W3, yep. Yes. Selfie
And then
San Diego.
And we'll also include the We See You link as well.
Absolutely. And W3schools.com.
There you go. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Eddie and Mike on Zoom.
Have a good one.